Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the University of Edinburgh Napier MBA webinar. My name is Helen Sporopoulos, and I'm the admissions manager at Stafford Global. And joining me this evening, all the way from the UK, is Dr. Ciaran. Good evening to you, Dr. Ciaran.
Hi, Helen. Good evening.
Okay, and I would like to actually say a Happy New Year to all of our attendees this evening, and also to you, Dr. Ciaran, and I hope we have a very good 2022. Okay, and how we are going to conduct the webinar this evening is I'm just briefly going to introduce you to Stafford Global. I'm then going to hand you over to Dr. Ciaran, and Dr. Ciaran is going to take you through the program, what you expect on the program, what you expect from your assignments, and then I'm going to be able to open up the portal towards the end of the presentation and take any questions that you may have for me or for Dr. Ciaran. Okay, so let us get started. Who is Stafford Global? Now, Stafford Global was established in 1993, and we are a resource centre for UK degrees and universities. Now, we have partnered with 6 UK universities, one of which is Edinburgh Napier University. Now, we do offer a variety of programs ranging from certificates to diplomas, degrees, MBAs, doctorates. So we really do have all the programs for your personal and your professional needs. Now, the mere fact that you are with us this evening means that you have been in touch with one of our experienced academic consultants. And our function is to assist you throughout the application process and ensure that you get that very, very important unconditional offer. And once you do get that unconditional offer, you can then start your program and be managed directly by the university. We do also offer some administrative support, so we do have quite a good local support as well, and also a bit of academic assistance as well. I'm now going to hand you over to Dr. Ciaran, who's going to take you through the program, and I will then join you towards the end of the presentation. Over to you, Dr. Ciaran.
Thanks, Helen, and Happy New Year to you too, and of course to all our attendees. I hope you have a really safe and healthy 2022. So as Helen said, my name is Dr. Ciaran Mcfadden-Young. I'm the program leader of the MBA Global Online here at Edinburgh Napier University Business School. So I'm responsible really for overseeing the program, the quality, the student experience, and liaising with the lecturers and staff on the program. Of course, I'd be delighted, as Helen said, to take any questions at the end of this short presentation. And I'll start by talking about Edinburgh and Edinburgh Napier, and then I'll go on to the program itself and talk about the different routes that you can take, as well as one's experience on the program and how we've developed the program to make it as flexible for you, the student. So in terms of Edinburgh, well, Edinburgh itself, I hope some of you get the chance, if you haven't already, to come visit Edinburgh, one of the best cities in the UK, if not the world, although I am slightly biased, but it has been voted the best UK city for the past 3 years. That's Edinburgh Castle there, the centre of the city, home to more FTSE 100 and tech startup companies than any other UK city outside of London. And it's also home to the largest arts festival in the world. Some of you might have heard of the Edinburgh Festival and also the Edinburgh Fringe Festival, where there's a lot of comedians from around the world will do stand-up and do different comedic shows as well. And so the reason that's relevant is because we have our MBA in finance, we have our MBA in event management as well. So we have people, we have lecturers on staff who have worked in these companies or as consultants in these companies, or have indeed worked in these events as well. They have real life experience that they can bring then into the virtual classroom. In terms of Edinburgh Napier itself, we have over 19,500 students from more than 130 countries. We're a truly global campus, as well as diverse and with all these multicultural backgrounds and the experiences that those entail. We have about 2/3 of those people are studying on campus in Edinburgh in our business school, but almost 1/3, so quite a large proportion, are actually studying in our partner universities worldwide and online. So we have students in Edinburgh, but also in Hong Kong, Singapore, Malaysia, some in Miami, I believe. I have students in the Bahamas and in Barbados, so we have them from all around the world. In terms of our views on Edinburgh Napier, obviously I'm going to tell you that it's a great university to join, but we do have some more unbiased opinions as well. So we're a #1 million+ modern university for business management. We're a top 5 UK modern university for accounting and finance, a top 10 UK modern university for marketing. So whatever your stream is, we're bound to have some lecturers there in those groups. We're a top ranked Scottish modern university and a top 10 UK modern university for business. In 2019, the HRM subject group actually received 100% student satisfaction, which made it top in the UK out of all institutions offering HRM. We have 5 QS stars for teaching, for employability, so your value add after you finish your degree with Edinburgh Napier, and for internationalization as well, reflecting that diversity and talent all around the world. And we're a top 10 in the UK for graduate employability, reflecting those 5 QS stars in employability. We have HR Excellence and Research Award from the European Commission, and the business school in the NSS survey in 2019 received 84% student satisfaction. So no matter what route that you're thinking of taking, we do have very good rankings, very good standards all around when it comes to teaching, employability, and student satisfaction. So let me talk briefly about the MBA Roots. And so some of you probably have already looked at the Roots, but I just want to clear up any confusion or any questions that you might have. So as we know, the MBA has a number of different routes, up to 13 in fact, but there is a general route, so the kind of the vanilla route, which is the general MBA. And the general MBA is made up of all these modules that you see here on the top half of the screen. So we have management and organizational change, leading to strategic decision-making, marketing and building high-performing organizations, global business economics and finance, research skills for managers, and the MBA project. Now, the 2 that are highlighted there in blue, managing innovation and contemporary issues in strategic management, those are what we call the kind of the optional modules or the swap out modules. So for the MBA General, you will do all of these modules pictured on the screen. However, if you choose a different route, then you will swap those blue modules for 2 other modules instead. And we'll look at those modules in a second. But have a look at the types of modules that you can study with this on the MBA route. It really is a kind of a holistic MBA program. So management and organizational change. So looking at change processes within organizations. And of course, change is that one constant thing, ironically, within organizations. We've seen it a lot during the pandemic, obviously, but really, no matter what organization or industry that you're in, there's always going to be some kind of change, a new product, a new market, a new service that you're developing, internal change as well. So management and organizational change is about managing that change process, including those problems that you might have with employees who are resistant to change, and managing that as well, and being a leader in that. Leading strategic decision making is what we call a hybrid module, because it takes together 2 different theoretical streams. So there's obviously leadership and there's strategy in this. So looking at strategic decision making within the organizations, looking at the strategy of the organization and what is the best decision to make, but then also when that decision has been made in the C-suite or with your executives, then actually having leadership involved in that. So leadership including motivating people, but also initiating structure in the organization to make sure that that decision flows very smoothly and is accepted by those who have to work on it. Marketing and building high-performing organizations, also a hybrid module, so marketing and then entrepreneurship. So making a really high-performing organization, or making your organization that you have already more high-performing, and then marketing that on a global scale. Global business economics and finance, looking at both microeconomics as well as macroeconomics, linking the finances and the accounting within the organization to the global sphere there. For the MBA General, you will study managing innovation, so how to innovate within the organization, not just with products like with Apple and Microsoft, but also just innovating services and processes within your organization to make it more fluid. Contemporary issues in strategic management is one of these modules that's kept up to date kind of by the week, basically. These contemporary issues, things that are going on in the news that might be related to strategic management. For example, looking at logistics and supply chains with regards to strategy when it comes to the pandemic, for example, and the vaccine rollout, things like that. So after you've done these first 6 modules, and these are all 20 credits, after you've completed these 6 modules, you'll then move on to your project modules. And so before you start an MBA project, and your research project involves a lot of different skills that you might need, first of all, you have to learn how to use those skills and what skills are actually needed. So you'll have your research skills for managers first, that module, which will teach you about quantitative research, which is the type of research we're probably more used to with statistics, graphs, bar charts, that type of thing, as well as qualitative research. Qualitative research involves things like focus groups and interviews, where you get a really in-depth story of what's going on with regards to a particular phenomenon, but you will just have a smaller sample because it's more focused and in-depth. So you'll have qualitative and quantitative research skills. You'll learn about research ethics as well, and integrity, making sure that you are an ethical researcher. So once you've completed that module, research skills for managers, then in the next trimester you go on to the MBA project. And the MBA project is a significant piece of research that you design and choose and do yourself. And so this is really where the part of the customization of the MBA program comes in, because you might be working in a particular industry or particular organization, or you might have an interest in working in a particular industry or organization that perhaps has a specific problem or specific issue that needs to be researched and tackled. Well, you can be the one to go out and research that. So in consultation with your supervisor, who will be a member of staff in Edinburgh Napier with specific expertise in your chosen area, in consultation with them, you will choose a research topic of your own choosing, your own liking, and then you will carry out some research. So that could be quantitative, qualitative, or if you're up for it, mixed methods where you do qualitative and quantitative research. Then you'll write your dissertation, and at the end, you will have a fully completed research project, which is not good not only from an academic point of view, but also from a career point of view, because you can go into your interviews and say, I have looked at this particular issue, here are my recommendations. I've gotten a strategic look at the inner workings of this organization or this industry or this phenomenon. It could be, for example, something like cross-cultural management is one that one of my students did. So you have an in-depth look at this phenomenon. So that's the general route. And before I go on to the swap out modules and the different routes, I want to draw your attention to the different exit points. Now, hopefully you will stay with us for the entire MBA, but we know sometimes life happens and you might have to exit a little bit earlier than that. So there is different exit points throughout the route. Individual modules carry an award. So if you have completed, say, 2 modules or 1 module, for example, leading strategic decision making, you will get an award for that to say that you've completed that module, which could be useful if you go on for further study. You might be able to get an exemption, a credit exemption with another university, or indeed with Napier if you come back to us. The postgraduate certificate is 60 credits. So if you completed 3 of those first modules, you will get you'll exit with a postgraduate certificate. Postgraduate diploma is all these 6 modules minus the research skills for managers and MBA project. And then if you do your research skills for managers and MBA project, you'll have 180 credits, which is worth an entire MBA award. Okay, so hopefully that makes sense. If you have any questions, do feel free to drop them in the chat box to Helen. So that was the MBA general route, and I'll just draw your attention. As I said, you will swap out the modules in blue with the ones in the following page. So here's our different routes, and here's the different specialized modules that make that MBA that particular route. So for example, maybe you have an interest in HRM. So instead of doing managing innovation and contemporary issues in strategic management, you will do all of these 4 modules plus the research skills for managers and MBA project. However, you will also do contemporary HRM and HRM in an international context. So you're specializing it, however, you still get exposure to those different aspects of the business environment, like global business, economics and finance, etc., entrepreneurship, leadership, etc. If you wanted to do, for example, the MBA Hospitality and Tourism Management, again with our lecturers who have that experience working in the festival or consulting with the festival, you do contemporary issues in hospitality management and international business event management. So you can see there's a really broad range there of all these different routes. No matter kind of what career you're in, you'll find something you can specialize with. We're particularly proud, for example, of our MBA in health management, healthcare management. So those working in healthcare, that could be an ideal route for you as well. So as I said, these are the specialized modules. You will complete the first 4 modules in the last slide and then swap out the ones in blue for these modules, then go on to do your project modules. So in terms of the experience, what does the ENU Global Online MBA look like? Well, it's 100% online, as I'm sure you know already. But when we say 100% online, we mean 100% online. There is no need to come to campus or anything like that, 100% online. And it's also asynchronous. Now, asynchronous basically means, well, let me talk about synchronous. Synchronous learning is when the lecturer or the tutor and the student is in the same room or virtual environment at the same time. They're synchronized. Asynchronous is the opposite of that, where the lecturer or the tutor will upload their lecture materials or the tutorial materials, and the student will then at a different time watch those and respond to those and study those in their own time. So in that way, it's flexible. You study at a time, a place, and a pace that suits your own personal and professional demands. When we designed this program, we knew that there's going to be some people with caring responsibilities or with work responsibilities. That means that they can't do a full-time program on campus or anything like that. And so we have it 100% online, it's asynchronous, and it's flexible. So you adapt it to your own particular schedule. If you want to do your studies in the morning before you go to work or before you have to get your children out of bed, then you can do that, or you can do it in the evening or in your lunch break, whatever works for you. We think we really don't mind as long as it works for you. So we have high quality materials, they're engaging, they're interactive, and they're self-directed. So you'll have both kind of, I'll talk about in the next slide, end of unit tests to test your understanding, as well as some assignments with each module too. So as I said before, it's a truly international student experience because you will be working and studying alongside other students from across the world, and we really benefit from that diversity of background and all those different experiences. We have 3 intakes per year. Our next intake is in January, but we also have a May intake and a September intake as well. We average around over 1,000 students at any one time. So a lot of students, a lot of different perspectives and backgrounds that really leads to this really engaging international student experience. In terms of assessment, I know assessment is always of interest to students, but especially if you're trying to balance that with caring responsibilities or work responsibilities. So let me tell you a little bit about assessment. As with the program as a whole, it's really much about flexibility, and you'll see that in the design of the assessments. So you'll be provided throughout the trimester with both formative feedback and summative feedback. So formative feedback is feedback that doesn't look like a grade or a letter or a number. Formative feedback is constructive feedback. It's a feedback that's given to you by the live academic tutor to help you improve on your work and to help you to collect your thoughts and to develop your understanding of the material. Summative assessments then are the assessments that we're used to with grades and letters or numbers. So you're 70 out of 100 or you're 2-1 or whatever it may be. So you'll be provided with the formative feedback throughout the trimester. Your summative assessments will then come towards the end of the trimester. So the end of unit progress test, we have 10 academic units with online questions at the end of each unit per module. This will test your knowledge and understanding of the key concepts within each unit, and that actually counts as 10% of the final module mark. So not worth a huge amount, but it is worth something, so it's worth doing. And in doing that, you'll be able to test your own understanding of the key concepts. Then we have the large assessment, which is the end of module assessment, and that's worth 90% of your final module mark. That's due usually in week 13. And the assessment can look different depending on the particular module itself. So global business, economics, and finance, that assessment would look a bit different than, for example, leading strategic decision making. One could be an essay, one could be more of a numerical assessment. So the assessments are going to be undertaken online. Again, it's 100% online, and they'll be described in the approved module descriptors. So if you're thinking about taking a particular module, have a look at the Napier website. You can even just Google Napier plus the whatever module it is that you want, and you will get the module descriptor. That'll tell you a little bit more about the assessment. Is it a report? Is it an essay, for example? And so then as part of this quality assurance process, the module leaders will sample a number of these summative assessments, just basically to check that the work submitted is that of the matriculated student. If there are any issues or any question regarding the authorship, then you may have to do an online viva, just to make sure that there's no plagiarism at play there. So that's the assessment. As you can see, it's towards the end of the trimester. You only have one deadline kind of towards the end of the trimester. When you're starting off, you don't have to worry about that. You have the entire trimester to adapt your schedule to both learning your materials, but also working on your assignments. So very flexible in that regard. In terms of the academic year, well, our academic year is divided into 3 trimesters of 13 weeks each. Some universities have semesters, we have trimesters. So you'll study each trimester, and that's 13 weeks each. And this is basically what an average, not all students will follow this pattern, but an average pattern would look like. So in trimester 1, let's say you're starting this January, this month, you might study the 2 modules. Usually we say that 2 modules per trimester is the appropriate amount. You can go down to 1 module if you do wish, but usually we say 2 is a good amount to study at a time. It is usually manageable for most people. So you'll study your first 2 modules, that could be leading strategic decision making and management and organizational change. You go on to your next 2 modules then in the May to August, the trimester 2. You'll complete your kind of core kind of 20 credit modules in your 3rd trimester, so bringing you up to December. And then in next January, so this time next year, you'll be starting your research skills for managers. You'll have completed all your basic 20 credit modules. You'll go on to your research skills for managers, and that'll take an entire trimester. And then after that, in trimester 5, then you will complete your MBA project. You can take a bit longer for that if you do need as well, but usually you complete that in that 5th trimester. So in terms of each trimester then, in terms of the weeks, well, week 1, you'll have access to the module materials on the virtual learning environment. We use the virtual learning environment Moodle. Some of you might have used Moodle or Blackboard before, but very similar in that regard and very user-friendly if you haven't used it before. You'll also have your online induction, usually with me, or a video or a checklist. And then you'll have your commencement of your studies in week 1. Weeks 2 to 12, you will have your module study. And as I said then, you'll have your submission or your final assignment in week 13. And so that's the same every trimester. At the end of trimester 5, for example, that is when you would submit your MBA project. In terms of your entry requirements and fees, we require an honours degree at 2.2 or above, plus 2 years relevant work experience. The relevance of the work experience might be up for discussion depending on what route that you're taking. Comparable alternative qualifications or professional qualifications and relevant work experience may also be considered. So really do have a discussion with the Stafford Global, your agent at Stafford Global, as well as myself, if required, because although those are the entry requirements, we can enter in conversations. We do have students on the program who might not have that honours degree, but have, for example, 5-10 years work experience, which is obviously suitable as well. The alternative to the MBA, if you don't have work experience, there is an alternative to MBA, and that's the MSc in Business Management. That starts in September and January as well. If you are thinking about studying but haven't got that relevant work experience. If your first language isn't in English, you need to provide evidence demonstrating that you can conduct yourself in English. For example, if you completed a previous degree in English, or you have the results of an English language test like IELTS, for example. But for more information on English requirements, on credit exemptions, on entry requirements, anything like that, as well as fees, do contact your Stafford Global personal consultant. The application deadline, well, the program starts on the 17th of January, so quite soon, but the application deadline is actually 3 days after that. You can join us a bit later because the deadline is the 20th of January 2022. As I said, if you have any questions about your fees, I will direct you back to Stafford Global. So I am delighted to take any questions. Thank you all for listening, and thanks for thinking about Napier as your next destination for learning. And congratulations as well. It's not always easy for someone to think, I want to go back into education. So congratulations on getting this far, and we hope to have you here at Edinburgh Napier. So Helen, thank you very much. I will go back to you for questions.
Excellent. Thank you so much for that very informative presentation. Okay, so there have been quite a few questions that have come through. I have managed to actually group them together. Okay, this is a very interesting question. I have completed my bachelor degree in the 80s. Please do not laugh. Okay, verbatim. I have not studied anything since then. I am a bit concerned that I won't be able to cope. Would I be able to complete this MBA successfully?
I mean, absolutely. I think it's we've designed the MBA to be very, how to say, user friendly or student friendly. It's also very student centered as well. And so there are kind of well, first of all, I think yes, you'd definitely be able to complete it. I think you know, having that previous educational experience, even if it was in the 80s, and I'm not going to laugh, but even if it was in the 80s, and you have your work experience as well, or other caring experience, then I'm sure you'd be well able to follow the materials. And you also have those end of unit tests at the end of each unit, so you can you kind of track your progress as well to make sure that you're understanding the material. If you don't have, I should also mention, if you are getting a bit stuck on a concept or theory or some kind of phenomenon and you want to discuss it, we do also have live academic sessions with a tutor. So it's a global online tutor. They're employed basically to host live academic sessions, which they're not tutorials because you don't have to go to them if you don't want to. But for example, if you have been studying a unit on leading strategic decision making and you think, oh, I don't know what this leadership theory really means, I'm having issues with it, then you can have a live conversation with an academic who will bring you through that theory and talk to you about that theory. So although it is, you know, 100% asynchronous in terms of the materials and things like that, if you do need synchronicity, if you do need to have that live chat, then that is there as well, and hopefully that will support you if you're having any issues. If you know, if all else fails as well, there are some stop gaps in the design of the program as well. If, for example, you're finding 2 modules a bit too much in one trimester, then you can drop down to 1 module. Or, for example, if something, and this goes for everybody, if something happens, if you develop COVID or another illness, or a partner or a family member or something develops such an illness, or just something happens in work, your work responsibilities get increased, then you can also suspend your studies for a number of trimesters. We also are quite flexible when it comes to assignment extensions too. So we do have that support available to you in terms of the academic tutors and of course module leaders and program leaders, but also we do have that system support too in case you are finding it a bit difficult.
Excellent. And this also follows up about the module choices. Is it advisable to do 2 modules at the onset of the program, or is it best just to take 1 module and then progress to 2?
I mean, I'd say it's entirely up to you and what you think you can manage in the first trimester. For example, if like the person before you're not used to education for a while and you haven't completed education in a while, and you think that maybe you just want to ease your way into it, then you could do that 1 module. However, I think the 2 module per trimester is kind of the average pattern that people take. So I think it is definitely manageable as well. But it's entirely up to you. You know, we don't have any, I suppose, preferences or anything like that with regards to how you manage your program. It's your program and it's very flexible in that regard. So have a discussion. You can have a discussion with your Stafford Global consultant, or indeed you can drop me an email to talk about that.
Good. And can you give me a bit more information about the university accreditation and if there are any external accrediting bodies?
Yeah, so we very recently, I believe it was in December, I think it was at the start of December, we had a visit from the AACSB accreditation committee. So that is the first part of the accreditation process, or rather the first in-person part of the accreditation process. and I believe they were quite happy, which is a good sign. So what they're doing now is going off back to Florida is their headquarters, and they're going to have the official visit next year in I think October. And so hopefully we have fingers crossed that we will be then accredited with AACSB. We'll also have some other accreditations as well from the UK, which you can look at on our website. But yeah, we're definitely looking forward to the next AACSB visit, and then hopefully being accredited with them afterwards.
Excellent. And I'm planning to take the MBA and come to the UK for work. So can you advise if the MBA Finance that I plan to do will help me to get a life and a job there?
Well, I mean, certainly having a degree from a UK awarding university, I think it would be very useful. It also demonstrates your ability in English, for example, which some employers would obviously look at as well. Of course, when we look at our employability rankings and our awards for employability, I think Edinburgh Napier is a very safe choice when it comes to securing a job afterwards. We do have our in-person MBA, so if you're in the UK then and you're doing the online MBA, then unfortunately you wouldn't be able to join us on campus because there's a different structure, but there is an in-person MBA as well that you could also look at. But certainly I do think it would be very useful, and I'm biased, but of course we do have those rankings and awards when it comes to employability. I think it'd be very useful for securing a job afterwards.
Okay, and can I complete this program in less time than stipulated? The reason for this question is I have completed my bachelor degree cum laude, and I think that I can manage to finish this program in a short period of time.
Okay, well, congratulations on finishing your degree cum laude as well. I think we would probably enter into a conversation with you about that. I think usually 2, depending on your own requirements, I think usually 2 is the kind of the maximum amount that we usually recommend. However, there could be an exception there. But if you do have if you're thinking about that and you don't have major caring or work responsibilities, then you can absolutely have a conversation with your Stafford consultant and myself, and we can see what we can do with regards to that.
Okay, and are there any strict entry criteria with regards to the English requirement, and how can I meet this particular requirement?
So I think, Helen, you might be able to help me out here.
Yeah, I'll answer that one. Good. Okay. If you do get in touch with us, Cedric, we'll be able to advise you on the various ways that you can actually meet that entry requirement. It really does depend on your degree certification as well as your working experience. So it's very important that you do get in touch with us. We'd like to see a copy of your CV plus your degree certificate, and then we'll be able to advise you how to meet that English requirement. And we do have a few flexible options there for you as well. Okay, and with regards to specializations, are there more specializations in the pipeline? I'm interested in cybersecurity.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. I think we're thinking, we're always having conversations, myself included, all the academics within the business school, about what different specializations we can come up with and will be popular. So yes, I believe we have been thinking about more, I suppose, more technological aspects that we go back to the specializing here. So we are talking about IT and things like that as well. We're also thinking about things like sustainability and diversity and inclusion. So certainly those are, I wouldn't say necessarily they're in the pipeline, but they're being discussed. And certainly if we think that there's a market for them, then absolutely, that would be certainly attractive for us as well as for the students. So I would say if you are interested in that and you would like to do an MBA in that, then I would say get in touch with either myself or a lecturer who deals with something similar to that, maybe an IT lecturer, and that'll have us have it on record that somebody is actually looking to do that, which obviously helps when we are applying for those specialisms and for the university to grant those specialisms as well, and to show that we have a business case for those too. So I won't say they're on the pipeline, but they're definitely being discussed.
Good. And what is the pass mark for your assignments? And another question to that is your pass, sorry, just trying to see what they're trying to say here. Oh, okay. So basically, is it ABCs, or would it actually be a numerical pass mark? And what is the pass mark for all your assignments?
Yeah, so our pass mark, I believe, is 50%, and then we would have a specific grading scale that we use at Edinburgh Napier. It is being phased out, so it might not be available if you're joining in future years. But we are just going back to numbers. But we do have a scale. It goes from fail, pass to distinction. So distinction is a really kind of a very, very an excellent project or proposal or assignment, and that would start at D1 going up to D6. So a D1 or D2 even is a really excellent submission. For most people, they would be in the P range, so that's the pass range, P1 to 5, P5 being the best and P1 being the worst on that scale. And then we can have the fail range, so an F1 being, I suppose, the best of the fails, but you still have failed, but it goes all the way down to F6. Usually F6 is used if somebody hasn't submitted anything. So we do have that range there. They roughly equate to a percentage, and you all have that table available to you as well. But we do expect that P1 grade there to pass the module.
Good. And the next question is from Lily. I am partially visually impaired. Would there be any way that I can be supported in order to do this MBA program?
Yeah, absolutely. And we have, I've recently been talking to a student who is partially visually impaired as well. And we do have a disability and inclusion team who will work to ensure that your requirements are met and that any accommodations that we can make will be made. So for example, with the student who I was talking to this trimester, she would have her lecture notes, or rather last trimester, she has her lecture notes actually printed out and sent to her. She's also given access to a physical copy of the textbooks that are used instead of an e-copy that are prepared specifically for people with visual impairments. So absolutely, we do have a very, very strong team when it comes to disability and inclusion, and also a very strong ethos when it comes to inclusion, especially of those with disabilities or different impairments. So yeah, absolutely, have a conversation. Again, have a conversation with Stafford, but also a conversation with myself, and I can also get in touch with the disability and inclusion team just to talk about more specifics if you do need to talk about that.
Excellent. And with regards to the actual structure of the MBA, I've noticed that there are no examinations. In your opinion, is this MBA still deemed a good MBA, even though there are no examinations, which is a traditional way that degrees get assessed?
Yeah, absolutely. So, well, first of all, yes, I would say it is definitely as stringent and as good as other programs, and I would say, talking about this pedagogically, talking about this from a kind of a learning and teaching perspective, if you think about what the MBA represents and what the MBA requires of you, it's things like critical analysis, being able to judge a situation and make appropriate action, coming up with appropriate recommendations based on particular constraints like budgets, finances, skills and talents, etc. And so all of that is tested within the MBA. But of course, we can't necessarily test things like that on an examination. It is usually, or at least having an examination will pull up some kind of a scenario that isn't necessarily true to life. What is true to life is being able to have some time to think your judgments through, some time to think your recommendations through, come up with specific, well-grounded recommendations and a good critical analysis, which reflects the business environment, we feel, a bit more realistically than an examination. Usually, if I think back to my undergraduate examinations, that's the last time I had an examination, I stayed up the night before to learn all the material, went into the exam hall and put it all down on the sheet, and then promptly forgot about it for the rest of my life. But with other projects, with other modules that I've completed, for example, in my master's, which was in business management, I remember that more fluently and more coherently, because I was working on that over a number of weeks, and I was able to make those decisions, really prime my knowledge and give them my best work there, which I think really reflects the business environment a bit more realistically. So yes, we would say it's as good as other pedagogical treatments, but certainly more and more universities are moving towards that examination lists way of assessing students. And certainly I think from a student perspective as well, it's more enjoyable because you're able, as I said, to give your best work, and also you don't have to take a couple of days or weeks off work to start cramming for exams. So we hope it satisfies both requirements there, I think.
Absolutely. Okay, and a question from Rafielway. I'm actually interested in organizational effectiveness, organizational development and design. Does the HRM MBA cover this particular topic?
Yes, so absolutely. So I'm actually a HRD scholar as well, as an organizational development and a human resource development scholar. And so we will have elements of human resource development throughout the HRM MBA. And we also, of course, let me just pull it up here. We also have, for example, contemporary HRM, which will be looking at contemporary issues, things that are that are happening within the HRM sphere. And that would include things like organizational development and HRD, especially actually within the last year or two with the pandemic. Organizations have had to develop quite quickly. We've had HRD when it comes to training and learning how to use different technology, things like that. So we do have elements of HRD throughout the MBA in HRM. And of course, then if you're interested in organizational development or HRD, you can then specialize your project on that specifically. So we have myself and I believe 2 other colleagues who would be qualified supervisors with expertise in HRD who could supervise your dissertation in that regard.
Excellent. And another question from Lily. In the event that I cannot attend the induction session, is it important for me to be there? And if I'm not there, will this be recorded so that I can review it?
So absolutely. So as I said, it's a 100% online and asynchronous. So we don't expect that everybody will be there at a particular time. We are kind of experimenting with their induction. Sometimes we will have an induction session where there's a recording with myself or someone else. But right now we have what's called the induction checklist. So there is some materials on Moodle that will bring you through. First of all, there's a checklist, and then under each part of the checklist, there's materials there that will guide you through what you will need to know for your MBA program. So for example, accessing the library, and then when you're in the library will give you details on how to access electronic journal articles or electronic textbooks, for example, using Moodle, having discussions on Moodle, things like that. Who are the contacts that you'll need to know, including myself and your module leaders, for example. So we are playing around with the induction process, but whatever it is that we end up on, we will definitely not require you to be there in person. If there is an online session, then it will be recorded as well and be made available to you on Moodle.
Great, and this is a question from Mohammed. Unfortunately, I do not have a degree. I've done small professional programs. However, I do have 16 years experience in the Middle East. Will I be accepted on this program?
I mean, just hearing about your work experience, I would probably say yes. I can't say for definite yes because I haven't looked at your profile in detail. But I think if you do have that much work experience, and yeah, we'd be delighted to have you on the program. But obviously, get in touch with Stafford Global and myself, and we'll have a conversation with that.
Absolutely, Mohammed, definitely. If you can kindly just send me a copy of your CV, and I'd like to actually see all your managerial roles and responsibilities, I will then be able to advise you accordingly. But as Dr. Ciaran has said, it really does sound quite promising, and then you will be able to be accepted into the program. Okay, with regards to tuition, I'll just actually answer the question. The tuition is not for free, but please do get in touch with your academic consultant, because we do have partial scholarships available for applicants that do actually apply through Stafford Global. So do get in touch with us, and we'll be able to give you some guidance on that as well. Okay, and this is about visiting the campus. Hopefully, if the flights are open up again, I'll be able to visit the campus. Will I be permitted to go onto the campus and visit the library, for example? Can I maybe attend any lectures there? And do I need a student card for that?
So in terms of visiting the campus, we would be delighted to have you as a guest on campus. I think if you have any issues, then you can obviously just drop me an email. Usually our students will have a digital or an electronic student card, which will be available to you on the My Napier app, which should be proof of your student status. I think in reality, nobody would be stopping you if you were on campus. We would just say maybe come before 6 p.m. Because the campus usually closes, at least in terms of its doors. So you might have issues going through the panels with your electronic student card. But if you come during the day, during the normal working hours, then we'd obviously be delighted to have you and to meet up for a coffee if you'd like that as well. In terms of access in the library is just kind of open access. Once you're in the building, you can just pop down to the library on the basement floor. You will be able to read the books and access the books. You just have to have a conversation with the librarian regarding actually taking a book out or borrowing a book with regards that type of those types of permissions. But you'd absolutely be able to go onto campus, get a cup of coffee, have lunch, and go to the library if you wanted to. And we'd be delighted to see you here.
Good. And a question from Fazan. If I happen to fail an assignment, which I pray that I'm not going to, do I get some assistance regarding that and then be able to resubmit an assignment?
Yeah, so absolutely, you will have a reassessment chance, so you'll be able to send in a resubmission of your assignment. Before you do that, you can look at the formative feedback that's given to you on your first assignment. If you failed an assignment, that assignment, regardless of whether you pass or fail the assignment, we would always give you, the strengths of the assignment and also some ideas for improvement. So even if you got a 70% in the assignment, which is a really good mark, we would still give you some areas for improvement. So if you have failed an assignment, I think naturally there will be more areas for improvement. And usually when we are failing a student, if a student fails an assignment, we would take a lot of time to really spell out what actually happened, what went wrong with that, and why that was a fail. However, then if you do require some extra, just an extra eye on that or another look at that, you can also get in touch with the module leader, who will be able to give you some additional brief formative feedback on the assignment. But as you said, hopefully you won't need that. But if you do, there is that formative feedback, and there is that reassessment chance for each assignment that you will have to take.
Good. And a question from Matthew. I have completed a postgraduate certificate from an institution in Canada, and will I be able to get a reduction in fees, and will I be able to get credits for what I have done?
So we do offer credit exemptions based on specific modules or programs or courses that people might have completed in the past. So, for example, with our leading strategic decision making is a common module that people would commonly get a credit exemption for, because they might have studied some MBA modules in the past, or they might have done a leadership course in the past. And if there, I believe it's an 80% overlap, if there's an 80% overlap or more between the program or the module and the leading strategic decision making module, or whatever module, Napier module it may be, then we would offer you an exemption for that, because in our eyes you already have that knowledge there. You don't need to do that module again. So in that regard, you won't have to do, if you have a credit exemption, you won't obviously have to study that, or you won't have to purchase that module. So you will get a kind of a slight reduction in fees in that regard, because it is on a module by module basis that your fee structure is worked out. Obviously, I'll pass you over to Helen and Stafford again, to say that if you do have any ideas about maybe having some credit exemptions, then send your entire profile to them, and they will have a discussion with me about your profile, and we'll try and work out if there are any credit exemptions due.
Absolutely, absolutely. And just another note on that, Matthew, as well, if you can also submit a copy of the learning outcomes of the modules that you have completed, this will actually make Dr. Ciaran and his team a lot easier for them to actually do the mapping and make sure that you do actually get that accredited exemption. Okay, and I'm assuming that there are assignments for every single module. Is it just one assignment, or do we have 2 assignments per module?
So usually we will have, there are assignments for every module. We usually have 1 assignment per module. I think we may, in some modules, and maybe towards, it'll probably, in a couple of trimesters or even a couple of years' time, we'll be moving towards maybe two assignments. If there are 2 assignments, then that'll be just breaking up the end of module assignment into 2. There won't be any extra work involved. It'll just be 2 different submissions. So I think leading strategic decision making, we have been discussing maybe just making it easier for students and having it as 2 separate assignments. But you will get a lot of prior notice if that happens. But yes, you will have at least 1 assignment for each module.
Okay, and a final question with regards to the graduation, is the graduation held specifically at the campus in the UK, or is it at another venue? And does my graduation certificate have distance learning mentioned on that?
Okay, so to answer the second question first, your certificate won't actually have distance learning on it. It'll just be a standard degree parchment with your name and your MBA award, or your whatever award it is that you exit with on the parchment. It won't say distance learning. In terms of graduations, usually we try to have our graduations obviously in person, like in the photo here at Usher Hall in Edinburgh, but it is obviously a little bit up in the air. We did have in-person graduations for the first time since 2019 back in November. Hopefully it'll stay in person. And we also have some local, those are the Edinburgh graduations. We also have some local graduations in different countries that there are Napier campuses or partners. We have one in Hong Kong, we have one in Singapore. If you do have any questions about that, I'd say get in touch with graduations@napier.ac.uk, because they will have the most up-to-date information with that regarding COVID, and also where the graduation might be held close to you.
Fantastic. Okay, great. Thank you so much, everyone. That was wonderful. Thank you so much for all the good questions. And we are currently still accepting applications for the January intake. So you're very, very welcome to still send your application through. We will accept applications until the 20th of January, which is not very far away. We would love to see you on this program. So please do get in touch with your academic consultant to get your application in. For everyone that was here this evening, we will be able to also send you a recording on this presentation, so you can always refer back to that. And if you have any questions, again, for me or Dr. Ciaran, you're very welcome to get in touch with us. Again, thank you so much, Dr. Ciaran. It was lovely having you with us this evening, and I do hope to see all of you on our program very, very soon. Thank you, everyone. Good evening to you all.
Thanks, everyone. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.